A single dad, a midnight text, one photo, and a question that changed everything. Before we continue, take a moment to tell me where in the world you're listening from. I read every comment, and I love seeing this community grow. Late at night, around 11:30, when the world had gone quiet and the only sound left was the steady hum of the refrigerator, Daniel Foster's phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. He almost ignored it. At that hour, it was usually spam, a late work email, or some useless notification he would regret opening. He lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, then sighed and reached for the phone anyway. The bright screen burned his tired eyes in the darkness of the bedroom. The message was from Eleanor, his neighbor, the woman who lived across the street. The elegant, quietly fascinating woman who had moved in 3 months ago, and with whom he had barely exchanged more than polite smiles and distant waves. His heart skipped when he saw there was a photo attached. Just one simple line beneath it. "Do you think it's beautiful?" Daniel opened the image. And in that instant, something inside him cracked open. Because what he saw on that screen would force him to confront everything he thought he had accepted about loneliness, about second chances, and about the terrifying risk of letting someone see the parts of yourself you've spent years trying to hide. But to understand why that message shook him so deeply, we need to go back. Back to the man Daniel had become, and the woman who would refuse to let him stay that way. Daniel Foster was 42 years old, a single father to a 16-year-old daughter named Sophie, a successful architect who worked from home, a man everyone described as calm, reliable, and doing great, all things considered, and a man who felt absolutely hollow inside. 5 years earlier, his wife Catherine had ended their marriage, not because of an affair, not because of betrayal or cruelty, but because one quiet morning, over coffee, she looked at him and said, "I don't love you anymore, and I don't think I ever really did." There had been no shouting, no drama, just words that landed like a blade and stayed there. Daniel never forgot them. He threw himself into being a father. He rearranged his life around Sophie. He worked from home so he wouldn't miss school events. He learned how to braid hair, how to listen without judgment, how to survive teenage moods with patience and humor. To the outside world, he looked healed. But at night, when Sophie was asleep and the house fell silent, the loneliness crept in. Quiet, heavy, relentless. He tried dating, apps, setups, awkward dinners with women who seemed more interested in his house than his heart. Eventually, he decided that maybe some people were meant to walk through life alone. He didn't like it, but he accepted it. Or at least, he told himself he had. He had his daughter, his career, his morning runs, his evening whiskey. That had to be enough. If you've ever felt that quiet resignation, that acceptance of a life that feels smaller than the one you imagined, take a moment and leave a heart in the comments. Because this story is for you. Eleanor Mitchell moved into the house across the street on a cool September morning. Daniel was working when Sophie knocked on his office door and said, "Dad, you need to see this." He assumed it was something minor. But when he looked out the window, he saw a moving truck and a woman calmly directing the movers. She stood out immediately. Tall, graceful, long hair the color of dark mahogany catching the sunlight. Skin so fair it contrasted beautifully with the deep burgundy sweater she wore. She moved with confidence, not loud or attention-seeking, just comfortable in her own presence. "She's pretty," Sophie said casually. "You should go say hi." "I'm not ambushing a woman while she's moving in," Daniel replied. "You're blushing." "I am not." "You are. Your face is red." He retreated from the window, dignity only partially intact. But he watched. Partner. Just Eleanor and a fluffy white cat she carried inside like a child. Over the weeks, he noticed things. She drank coffee on her porch at sunrise. She gardened obsessively, filling her yard with bold, colorful flowers. Books arrived at her door constantly. And according to neighborhood gossip, she was a retired art history professor who had traveled the world and had never been married. Never married at 51. Daniel asked one evening. "That's what Mrs. Patterson says. She thinks that's suspicious." "Mrs. Patterson thinks everything is suspicious." Sophie smiled. "You're defending her a lot for someone you haven't spoken to." Their first real conversation happened because of a disaster. It was Sophie's birthday. Daniel was grilling burgers when the propane tank died completely. 12 hungry teenagers waited inside. No backup plan. Then Eleanor appeared at the fence, holding a full propane tank. I heard someone having a very intense argument with a grill, she said, amused. Thought you might need this. Daniel stared, then laughed. I was having a calm discussion about its life choices. Of course, worthless piece of garbage is a term of affection somewhere, I'm sure. You heard that. My window was open. I also heard something about grill hell. He laughed harder than he had in years. That night changed everything. Their friendship grew naturally. Vegetables from her garden. Coffee at his table. Texts about absurd antique shop finds. Sketches he sent her during boring meetings. Sophie adored her. Daniel kept his distance. He joked. He deflected. He mentioned Catherine. He reminded himself this wasn't real. Eleanor never pushed. But one night, she said, "Why do you hide behind humor?" "Because the last time I was real, I was told I was never loved," he answered quietly. She took his hand. Or maybe she was broken. "And you've been punishing yourself for it." He pulled away. Winter came. The anniversary of his divorce arrived. Sophie slept over at a friend's house. Daniel sat alone with whiskey and memories. Then Eleanor texted, "Are you brooding dramatically in the dark? I prefer tortured artists. You design buildings. Very tortured parking garages. Come over. I baked cookies. I won't let you be alone tonight." He went. She didn't ask questions. She just sat with him. Later, he asked, "Why aren't you married?" She told him about her life. Her choices. Her quiet regrets. Something shifted. Then Catherine came back. Apologies. Regrets. A request for another chance. Daniel felt nothing. But he didn't tell Eleanor. She pulled away. Quietly. What he didn't know was that Eleanor wrote him a letter. And then came the photo. The painting showed two houses on a quiet street. Warm light. Two figures standing across from each other. It was them. "Do you think it's beautiful?" Daniel didn't reply. He crossed the street barefoot and knocked on her door. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," he said. "And I almost let it go because I was afraid." "I'm in love with you," he told her. She cried. She kissed him. 5 years later, Daniel still believes that walking across that street was the bravest thing he ever did. And staying would have been the biggest mistake of his life. Because it's never too late to choose love. Never too late to risk being seen. Sometimes, the story that changes everything begins with a simple message from someone closer than you ever imagined. If this story moved you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people find stories like this. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Have you ever been afraid to cross your own street? Remember this. It is never too late for your beautiful story to begin.